Yes! Finally! My grocery list is done. I got some chips here, so I can take them and eat them. Then I got my swim goggles. Gotta get those for the swimming lesson. I just hope the instructor explains how to kick our legs this time. Hello, my name is CJ, and welcome to my review of Netflix's 2017 film adaptation of Death Note. Yes, it's the live-action Western Death Note movie that we've been hearing about for years. Rumored for years. A lot of people, I remember, back in the late 2000s were hoping that Zac Efron would be cast as Light Yagami. There was a bunch of rumors flying around. Well, it's finally here. Oddly enough, so many years after its popularity. It's kind of just odd to be talking about it right now. Let me be frank with you when I say this. This is not a terrible film. In fact, as far as most anime adaptations are concerned, this is actually probably one of the better ones. I'm being absolutely serious when I say this. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean it's a good film. It definitely has a lot to improve on, in my opinion, but it's not a terrible one either. Now, I'm going to talk about a little bit of what I liked in this movie, and don't worry about spoilers. I'm not going to go into them just yet. I'm going to warn you well beforehand, before I go into those spoilers. So the first thing is Light Yagami. He is a way better character in this movie than he was in the manga, and oh, that is such a controversial thing for me to say, so please let me explain myself. So in the original manga, the way Light was written was to appeal to the child and teen audience, hopefully mostly teen audience, that was reading Death Note at the time. See, the thing is, popularity in Japan is not really based on what it is in the States or in other Western cultures. So in Western cultures, we tend to like, the star of the football team, the captain. We like the head cheerleader. We like those kids as the popular kids. In Japan, it's actually the kid who's the most intelligent, who's the top of their class academically. We do value valedictorians here in Western cultures, but we don't as much as they do in Japan. So Light Yagami makes sense to be a well-liked character. I mean, immediately, a Japanese teenager reading Death Note is going to be super attached to him. Likewise, so people who watch my channel would know I'm obsessed with Sailor Moon. Sailor Mercury is consistently one of the most popular characters in that show, if not sometimes the most popular character, because she's the most intelligent. Her IQ is super ridiculously high. She gets the top marks on every single one of her exams. She's the top of her class. Most popular character for that reason, and Light Yagami is the same way. So over here in the States and other Western cultures, if they were going to make Light Yagami the top of his class in the Western film adaptation, well, it wouldn't have the same effect that it does in Japan. So what they did to get around this, to make you sympathetic or have his cause be somewhat understandable, is his mother, who is very much alive in the original manga. You end up discovering that his mother was killed by this really awful, dirty, gangster kind of guy. It involves something with, a car, he ran her over or something. They didn't really go too much into detail. So immediately you feel a connection to him. You go, yeah, I can kind of understand why Light would want to kill this guy. It makes sense. In fact, the first person that Light ends up killing is a bully who is just, a terrible, awful person and, literally beats people and gets away with it. So, although I personally have never agreed with Light Yagami's morals in any adaptation of Death Note, you can at least be somewhat sympathetic to his cause. So I actually really, really liked that change. I also really, really liked Ryuk. They did Ryuk so well. So Ryuk is played by Willem Dafoe, and obviously, it's not just literally Willem Dafoe, but also a bunch of special effects. And Ryuk looks not bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but I have to respect that they kept Ryuk's original design mostly in place. They could have went with something completely different, but instead they honored his original design and just kind of worked with it the best way that they could. He did look genuinely creepy at first, but then as you start to get used to his face, he kind of just looks more silly than anything else. But the voice, the presence, everything was there. That was really, really enjoyable. Ryuk may be the reason that you should check out this film. Something that also surprised me was they don't shy away from the gore in this film. Some of the deaths are very violent. In fact, the first death was so shocking. I thought they were going to do like a hard cut to something else as soon as the guy was about to die, and nope. They showed everything, and it was like, whoa! Like, not even the original Death Note went that hardcore with its gore or its violence. Like, this is super edge the movie. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because in my opinion, like, Light, when he first kills this guy, I'm not gonna spoil how he did it, but when he first kills him, he actually, like, sees it for himself, and he kind of goes, oh! And, like, you know, that's exactly what you're feeling. You're like, oh! Like, and so it was a really, really cool moment where I feel like they did that perfectly. Like, you connect with Light. You're like, oh my gosh, like, what did you just do, son? So that was really, really good. As far as the other gory moments, kinda hard to tell if they were necessary or not. What I'm gonna say, though, is if you can't handle gore or you just don't like it, don't watch this movie. Other than that, though, like, you're pretty much okay for the original manga. The original manga is violent in some points, but definitely never hits the gore level like this movie does. I'm about to go into some major, major spoilers for not only the film adaptation, but also for the original manga. So if you're concerned about spoilers, now is the time to stop. So, let's address the elephant in the room. Let's address L. Whew, okay, so L was, L started off good. Again, I'm more reviewing this film as an adaptation. So initially when they adapted L, you know, L comes in, he's eating candy, he's hunched over, he's doing his L stuff, and I'm like, okay, it's L, he's got Watari with him, you know, he's doing his thing. And then the movie starts getting kind of weird. So there's a part where Mia, as she's called in this version, and Light, end up basically using the Death Note to brainwash Watari into trying to figure out what L's real name is. So they basically make Watari disappear. He is no longer in L's radar, and L loses his cool. L wasn't completely emotionless in the manga, but he does not go crazy like he does in this movie. In fact, in the manga, Watari straight up dies. It's a very sudden scene, and L doesn't react to it at all. He's just like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. I guess we gotta figure out why he died. And in the movie, he's just like, what? He's just like going crazy. And I was like, what is going on? This is not very much like L. And, you know, eventually Watari does die. Light and Mia didn't mean to kill him. In fact, they were actually going to tear his page out of the book and burn it, which was a film-only inclusion. Where you could actually, like, save someone from the Death Note, but they didn't do it in time for reasons I'll talk about later. So then L basically goes on a rampage, driving a cop car through a city, putting innocent lives in danger in order to try to get Light, and it is so out of character for him that I just was stunned. L is the worst part of this movie. And the thing is, he could have been so good. So the movie ends with literally the worst part of the entire film. L stumbles into Mia's room and he finds the page that she used to kill the FBI agents, which again, I'll talk about this more later on in this review. And he becomes tempted to write down Light's name. And at first I was like really, really offended by this. I was like, okay, like that's not a thing that L would ever do. And then I realized, I was like, how did this movie begin? Right? So Light initially used the Death Note to avenge his mother. Watari is basically L's father. So there could have been a really interesting parallel there. You know, L now begins his life as Kira, inspired by the same motive for revenge as Light. That would have been a really cool, like, not only like bookend for the movie, but also kind of just like, it could have been an exploration of the film's themes in that, you know, your justice is what you make of it. You know, justice isn't just something that we can just define logically, factually. Justice is something that is true for you. Everybody has their own sense of justice, and it could have been a very interesting, like, question to say, you know, is L not that different from Kira, not that different from Light. If L was in the same circumstances that Light was in, at least in the film adaptation, not the manga, would he have gone down the same route? It would have been kind of interesting to explore that. Instead, they end it with a cliffhanger, and they don't show whether whether Light is killed by L. It just ends. It's like, really? Alternatively, they could have also shown him not write down Light's name and actually have him overcome that struggle and overcome it and say, okay, no, I'm not going to be like Light. I am L. I am strong, and I will take him down. That could have been a really great ending. Instead, it's just a cliffhanger. Oh, there's so much they could have done, and they chose not to do it. But speaking of things they did do right, let's have a conversation about Misa. The worst part of Death Note. I will go to my grave saying this. Let me be frank with you. Misa is the worst part of the original manga of Death Note. She is a waste. A waste of a character. The first YouTube video I ever published on this channel was my original manga collection for 2015. Wow, it's been 2 years since then. And in it, I made what I discovered later to be a controversial statement saying that Death Note is a sexist manga. And I don't mean this to say oh, Death Note is bad because, it's got issues, regarding sexism. I'm not saying that at all. Please feel free to read Death Note. Please feel free to enjoy it. But at the same time, it's something that I wanted to acknowledge because Misa is literally an object that Kira uses throughout the entire story. And I wouldn't be that upset by that, except that there's literally, with the exception of one woman who appears very early in the series, and I forgot her name, I'm actually going to put it right here. It's that beautiful lady's name. She is literally the only exception. Every single woman in Death Note is an object to be used by Light or another character. Every woman is pathetic in Death Note. In fact, it's almost interesting because this film adaptation deals a lot with emotions. Light is motivated by his emotions. L, in the end, is motivated by his emotions. Same with Mia. She is motivated by her emotions. The original manga actually sees emotion as a weakness. It's why later on in the manga, Nier is seen as being more intellectual, more capable than Mello, because Mello is emotional. He's more feminine. So it was interesting to see this film actually take the character of Misa and do something interesting with her. So my favorite part of the original manga is the case of the second Kira, when the police department initially think that Kira is publishing all these messages on TV and killing all these news anchors and making this grand statement. L eventually figures out, no, this is actually another person. Kira wouldn't act like this. It's this really cool mystery, and the reader kind of gets dragged along trying to figure out who this second Kira is. And eventually you figure it out it's just Misa. It's the worst character of the entire series. But up until the reveal, it was very interesting. It was wow, why is Light doing all these crazy things? I thought he was a cool bro, and had this plan and was intellectual, and oh wait, it's just a second crazy Kira. Oh, that's cool. Really cool, idea that is soiled by, its conclusion. But Mia in this film is very much she eventually becomes kind of the main antagonist. Throughout the film, we learn through Light that Ryuk has been messing with things. Ryuk has been writing people's names in the notebook and has been messing with Light's plan. Eventually, the plot twist of the film is that Mia, or Misa, has been doing it the whole time, which for readers of the manga, you will not be surprised by that because her actions are very similar to the second Kira case in the manga. And I was thrilled. I was thrilled by that change because, in my opinion, Light and L were kind of duo protagonists in the manga. You can't really call Light the villain of the manga, and you can't call L the villain of the manga either. So the manga, in the end, really has no villain. So instead, they made Mia, or Misa, the villain of the movie. I don't agree with Light's morals, but I at least am sympathetic to his cause. Mia, however, kills innocent people in order to protect Light. Her obsession literally turns her into the villain of the film. It's incredible. So instead of saying, in the original manga, where Misa's obsession is the tool by which she is controlled, in the movie, her obsession is her weapon. It's insane how different Mia is from Misa. She's a totally different character. The literal only similarity you can make between the two is that they're both really infatuated with Light, and that's about it. In the end, Light ends up overcoming Mia. He ends up outwitting her and outsmarting her. But at least she goes down in a blaze of glory. Like, at least she, you know, maintains her integrity to the end. Like, it's so hard for me to love Death Note and also try to excuse Misa as a character. Because I'm just going to be real with you guys, and I usually don't use terminology like this, but she just sucks as a character. Literally. No motivation aside from, I'm going to be Light's girlfriend, and oh boy, do I love Light. It's a terrible character, and I'm so glad to see this change. In fact, Mia, for me, saved this movie, turning it from what I would consider just to be a really bad Netflix movie into just kind of a decent one. So here are my final thoughts. This movie's okay. It's not bad. Certainly not good. It's just okay. As far as anime film adaptations go, it's certainly one of the better ones. Not the best one. That would be, for me at least, Edge of Tomorrow, the adaptation of All You Need Is Kill, which the manga adaptation of All You Need Is Kill had its art done by Obata, who also did the art for Death Note. Coincidence? I think not. Other than that, though, it's just okay. You know, my boy Matsuda isn't in it, but I'll live. Thank you so much for watching this review. I really appreciate it. Now I want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Did you disagree with me? Maybe you had a thought on something that I didn't cover in this review. Whatever it is, please put it in the comments below. I would love to read your ideas. And until next time, this is CJ, signing off.